Hello, welcome to episode number 3 of the Tesla Motors Club podcast. I'm your host, Mark.
I'm Lewis.
And I'm Mike.
Today, we're going to give you a little background into ourselves as hosts. We will discuss FSD Beta. We'll also discuss the CCS Adapter coming to North America, Powerwalls, Starlink, Austin Gigafest, and a lot more. We want you to stick around for it. So, Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go to Lewis.
Sure. Happy to share. There's always the question is always tell us something that's interesting about you that makes you unique from everybody else. And I think I've got the perfect thing for that. So I was actually born in San Francisco. I'm a native of San Francisco, but I spent several years growing up at a lighthouse in New York.
Wow.
Called Tibbetts Point. It's now a youth hostel. You can actually go there and stay overnight.
Yeah.
But my dad's last duty station as a coastie, U.S. Coast Guard, was a lighthouse keeper. And so he was the keeper. So we lived at the lighthouse, and I spent several years living at this lighthouse, good and bad. I mean, we'd get the weather coming in off the Great Lakes, and it was extreme to say the least. And it was a lot of fun as a kid. I'll say that. Other interesting notes, I grew up around being a gearhead. I mean, my dad built Harley Davidsons and was a Harley Davidson mechanic. And from early years, it was, hand me that wrench, hand me that screwdriver. I grew up with the smell of gunk, which was a brand name of a chemical cleaner. And to this day, occasionally I'll smell something, brings it all back in the rush. Yep. Built my own hot rods, did roundy round, pre-NASCAR stuff, a lot of quarter mile, got into some road racing and whatnot. But, one thing leads to another, and I ended up in computers. So I do computer networks, I do cloud. That's my thing right now is cloud and cloud security. But as far as the EV side of the house goes, why am I involved in a Tesla podcast? My wife and I bought a Pacifica hybrid last year. And it was kind of like, well, do we really want an EV? Do we want to, make that jump? And we go, well, we did the chicken thing where we put our toes in with a hybrid. And lo and behold, this is actually kind of fun. I like driving around battery. I like just plugging in and having a full tank, as it were, the next day. And we talked a bit about it, and we said, okay, we'll make the full jump. And I picked up a used Model 3 last year. And that was my dive into the Tesla world. Now, my father-in-law's got a 2015 Model S. He went into Tesla years ago, and he still has it to this day. And it is a lot of fun to drive, I have to say. Classic Tesla. But I guess now we're talking about solar power. That's the next evolution of having an EV as well. Can I do solar power and not pay for it? But that's kind of what brought me here to TMC. Is I got my Tesla, and I want to reach out to the community and kind of learn about it and meet other people of like mind, and here we are.
That's fantastic. That's the lighthouse thing is super cool, man. I mean, did you have, was the light in there? Was it the light?
Dude, it was full on, had the light up there. We did a foghorn. I mean, I can sleep through anything nowadays. I mean,
oh my God, man, that was crazy, man. That's fantastic. All right, Lewis.
Oh man,
next brother.
All right.
No pressure. I mean, Mike set the stage, so it's no pressure.
My name's Lewis. I grew up in a lighthouse. No, I didn't. Let's see. I grew up in Jersey, originally New Jersey, by the shore. So to me, the lighthouse was a Italian ice parlor. Where I grew up. But yeah, so I've just always been a nerd, always been a geek. Taught myself to code originally from books pre-internet, so before the internet, learned from books. Amen. I always was tinkering, electronics. I learned basic electronics, taught myself to solder, all those kind of things growing up. Served in the Air Force, actually. It was in the military. I did electrical systems there, so I did power distribution. I was a lineman, used to do everything from from power generation out to getting the power to places. So working on super high voltage lines, and then even doing panel installations on buildings and stuff like that, 3-phase, big motors, all that nonsense. after that, I kind of, I went to college after the military, and I studied it was computer science and physics double major. So again, keeping with the nerd, and yeah, basically been working as an engineer ever since. I kind of, I've dabbled in a lot of industries. I kind of like to dive deep into something and get like really focused on it for a couple of years, and then I tend to get bored, and then I kind of branch out. That's just my personality. So I've worked in a lot of R&D jobs in medical devices, in control systems, IoT type stuff before it was called IoT.
Right.
Semiconductor manufacturing, that's probably my favorite thing that I loved working in. Worked with physicists all day, and just doing like bleeding edge nanoscale tech, which was a lot of fun. And all of those kind of things I kind of developed. We did a lot of machine learning and robotics, and a lot of the same parallels to like self-driving cars and FSD and a lot of those things. So I loved a lot of that background caused me to love Tesla and the stuff Elon was working on, SpaceX. Oh, I love space. I love all the rocketry and things like that. Just the physics behind it is really cool. Why I got into Tesla, I basically, I like the tech. I wanted a Tesla for years, but it was always one of those, is it practical kind of thing, not sure. And then finally, when I finally had a home, like I actually owned a home, I was like, ooh, now I can maybe do this, right?
Exactly.
Like now I can do the home charging. Where I lived before, they didn't really have, it's becoming more popular now, right? Where, apartments and condos and things will have charging, but it didn't where I lived prior. So yeah, I mean, so we've got, for my house, I have Tesla solar, ordered the Powerwall stuff, all those things, wanted to do the install myself. Part of my military, I was a licensed electrician, so I could do all that. However, I looked at how much work it was and said, "Nah, screw that. I'm paying them to do it." So I had Tesla do it for me.
The labor.
I was just like, "Oh man, I don't want to be on a roof and dealing with all those things."
I'll bring you water and coffee, so have fun.
Right, exactly. But I did run my 240-volt line and do all that myself with my panel for my in-home charger.
Nice. That's cool.
So did all that. So I have a Model S Plaid on order. The whole thing there is I love to drive fast. I love driving fast. I've definitely hit the governor on my on cars in the past. I shouldn't do that. So I'm more responsible now. But I probably won't drive as recklessly. But just having the acceleration, having the power is amazing. I might bring it to the track. I love working on cars. I'm not nearly as knowledgeable as Mike is. I wouldn't say I'm a gearhead, but like I'm not afraid to take stuff apart.
Right.
So I took my car apart, and I, got in there, and I'm really looking forward with Teslas of, working on the electronics and upgrading and doing mods and things like that. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So it's definitely where I've been. TMC is a wealth of information. I love TMC. That's why I've been on there every day, all the time, reading forums and, talking to people.
It is addictive, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so addictive. So love being part of this community, and really, grateful to be here with you guys.
That's fantastic, man. All y'all had some amazing stories, but me, I'm a country boy from Tennessee. So I grew up in, not with straw in my mouth, but I grew up in Tennessee. Was there all my life. My uncles were always into photography and music. And as I was growing up, I always listened. I would sneak down to my uncle's room and listen to records and stuff, and so they got me focused into music. And later on in life, I got focused into it was in 5th grade, and a substitute teacher asked us, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" So everyone's listing, "Oh, I want to be a president, I want to be a doctor, an Indian chief." I was like, "I want to be a camera guy," and she was like, "Okay," but her face was like, you mean that, so okay. And so from that point, I was like, yeah, I want to be a camera guy. So my focus for the rest of my life was to try to do that. I taught myself cameras. I taught myself how to edit. I didn't go to school for that. I went to school for electronics and computer programming because my mom forced me to go to school. I was into music as well, and music is a big part of my life. I do music production now, but it's more of a professional hobby. I get paid to do certain projects, and I can also turn down certain projects if I don't want to, because my main thing is film and TV production. But at the time when I graduated, my mom was like, "You're not going to do music that's not going to pay anything. You need to go to school, get a degree. So I went and got electronics because I understood that. And so I did that. And at a time in the 90s, I was also a fireman. So I was a fireman for 8 years. That was an amazing job. The things you saw, you learn to appreciate fire and respect fire. You understand that fire is a breathing entity, and it's starving for it wants to feed off things. So if it senses air, oxygen, or a fuel source, it will go to it. And just learning those things and the technical aspects of firefighting, and also as a paramedic, that was really a fun time in the 90s for me. And it also allowed me to do side projects in film production, sometimes for free, so I could get someone's, get their rapport and get a client list. So eventually, that worked all out, and then I've been doing it ever since. So I absolutely love what I do, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do what I can do every day. What got me into Tesla was I was talking to a friend he put a down payment on a Model 3, and he got his Model 3 when he got it. And he was a camera guy, so we were working on this show, and we were in downtime. He said, "Man, have you seen a Cybertruck?" I said, "Yeah, I didn't really think about it." I said, "Man, I think it's great." And so then at the time, I was thinking of changing my car over. I had an Infiniti QX80, and I was thinking of changing it over to a new one because I wanted a newer model. And so he said, "Man, this Cybertruck is great." I said, "Okay, well, let me do that." But then Elon was like, "Oh, it'll be next year." And so this is, of course, 2019. I said, "Okay, well, I can't wait that long. So maybe I'll get a Model 3 to hold me over until next year." So that's what got me into the Tesla world. I said, well, if I get a Model 3 now, I can experience EVs, experience the battery charging, how that works, what that looks like. Because I was used to spending $80 a week on fuel. So like now I can just go to plugging my car up. Like, how does that even work? So I researched everything Elon, I researched everything Tesla, and it brought me to TMC. And so even Tesla, they have a forum, which it's just so convoluted to check out. And so I was going through Google, and TMC was like one of the tops. And so from that moment on in 2019, I was hooked on their website, and I became a member. And so there's a lot of wealth of information. Like Lewis and Mike, you guys, just in talking to you in the podcast we've had, you guys bring a lot of information, a lot of technical stuff, especially Lewis. But Mike, you also bring that engineering, the old school muscle car thing. And I'm a big muscle car fan too. So my point is that site brings like-minded people together, so we were able to come together, and here we are doing this podcast for TMC. Like, who would have thunk us three attractive, charming gentlemen would actually be in a podcast for TMC when we both thought this place was great. So I think it's just a wonderful opportunity that we have here, and that I applaud the owners and the producers for giving us an outlet and allowing us to represent TMZ. I think this is a great idea.
Totally agree.
Yep.
I really liked, I love your story about how you didn't know about Elon's timelines yet.
yeah.
Right.
Real world Elon.
As anyone that's followed Tesla for a while, or any of Elon's projects, it'll be in a year. Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, thanks guys for sharing your information about that. But we do want to get into some topics that we already have in place. And there was a person, I think, on YouTube that posed a question to us. I think it was in the last podcast, and it was concerning FSD and the MCU1, I think.
MCU1. Right.
And Lewis, if you don't mind, can you give us some background about that and tell us what's up with that?
Yeah, so it was Chris Ashley from YouTube posted asking, he said, "Can someone address the FSD MCU1 thing? Can't seem to get an answer from Tesla, and people paid but still don't have beta." So to give a little bit of background on what Chris is asking about. So basically, first, a small elephant in the room. FSD, so full self-driving, which is the name of the product, is not actually autonomous driving. It's not full self-driving. Right. It's kind of like advanced autopilot or enhanced, which they've used those names already. So they kind of are pushing the envelope a little bit with their full self-driving. But it's kind, it has all those new like self-lane changing and some of those new features. So basically the concern is, Tesla's been selling cars for years before, as the technology, it's still developing, still improving, but they were selling cars saying, how do we, if you pay extra, you'll upgrade your car will be ready for full self-driving. The problem is full autonomous driving, Mike knows this well, I'm sure, like as a technology when you're developing it, until you actually crack it, until you get there, you don't really know what it's going to take. You don't actually know. Does the hardware today, does it work? Could we do self-driving on hardware today? Maybe not. No one really knows until we get there. So the problem is they've been upgrading the hardware as they go, right? New technology comes out. Tesla, this will make it even better. And they get newer processors, newer video cards, the GPUs, newer cameras and sensors, and sometimes removing sensors, which we can get into. But part of that problem is you don't know what you're going to need. And so this question, this MCU1, that was it's not actually the first gen, but kind of the first gen hardware. And I actually, just to be clear, because this is also commonly misconception, there's actually two pieces of hardware related to the kind of the electronics and the self-driving, the sensors and all that. There's the MCU and the ECU. The MCU is the media control unit. That's actually just for your infotainment system. So that's like your touchscreen, your music, your interaction, how responsive that is. The MCU, they version them with numbers. So there's MCU1, MCU2. They actually, I think what I've seen is like MCU-Z is like the later gen one. That's what the current cars have. That actually has almost nothing to do with self-driving. So his question, I think what he's really asking is good. I don't want to say anything about Chris because a lot of people, they conflate these. It's really the ECU, the electronic control system, and how Tesla usually denotes that as they call it hardware. There's HW1, HW2, 2.5, 3. So there's these two competing modules. The HW module is really, it's the ECU plus the cameras and sensors and the wiring and stuff. So that's why it's got all these funky names. But anyway, so the bottom line is right now, Tesla has FSD Beta, the latest and greatest in self-driving from Tesla. However, it requires you to have hardware 3 to actually participate. And the problem is there are many customers, thousands of people that paid for full self-driving or enhanced autopilots and other types of things, such as Mark, where they don't have hardware 3. They don't have the latest, chips, the control unit, and also the cameras and sensors. So Tesla, knowing this would be a problem, has allowed upgrades. Here's the problem. They only allow upgrades from hardware 2 to 2.5 into 3. That's just swapping out a control module, which is just a self-contained unit, pretty easy to do, and also optionally some cameras or sensor upgrades. But they already have the wiring. The problem is the MCU1, which is also with hardware 1, does not have side cameras, does not have some of the other sensors that the modern cars have. So really the bottom line is Tesla's kind of been glossing over this, saying, there was hints, I think Elon said something maybe 3 years ago, like, oh yeah, we might have some upgrades from hardware 1 to hardware 3. They have not done it yet. They've been pretty quiet about it lately. And the problem is, from a software standpoint, from machine learning, like there's no way the hardware 1, in my opinion, is going to support the newer models. Now, they have released in the past some updated software for MCU1 folks. But the MCU1 can be upgraded. That one's a little bit easier to do. The hardware one, not so easy because there's new wiring. You need new ports in your panels. Where would you put the cameras? All that kind of stuff. There's also power draw requirements. The original hardware one was 25 watts. The newer ones are, 400 watts or 300 watts. Like they draw way more power. So anyway, so the bottom line is, has Tesla dropped the ball here? Personally, I think they have. I don't think hardware 1 is going to be able to do the new software. I think it would be great if they offered a retrofit. Do I think it's feasible or financially, sound to be able to? Like, it's one of those upgrades that I'm not really sure. And again, they might have a solution coming. I don't want everyone to be, disheartened and say it's never going to happen, because I don't know that. I'm just, from an outside observer, I don't see it happening. I feel like Tesla's kind of sweeping this one under the rug, or they're just kind of delaying and hoping people will upgrade their cars to newer models. Do I think this could happen again, which is another problem? It's possible, but less likely. They've gotten closer to the target, right? The end target of self-driving is closer than it was, 10 years ago, when 2012, when the first Model S's were coming out with hardware 1. We have more wiring, we have more sensors. They're more in the know about retrofitting and future-proofing and things like that. But yeah, unfortunately, Chris, what I'll say is all of us have to just wait and see if Tesla's going to do something. Do I expect them to? I don't see them getting the hardware or the software to run on your existing hardware. You just don't have the sensors. You don't have those things. And I don't expect them to offer a retrofit of the wiring and the hardware, because the hardware 2 to 3 or 2.5 and all that, that's easy. That's swapping out a module, maybe replacing the cameras at the end points where they already are. Making whole new wiring runs that go through the frame and through the body and go into the panels and I don't see that happening. But I don't know. Mike's done a lot more auto body and car related work than me. He might have some insight there. So yeah, so hopefully that helps, Chris. But unfortunately, I don't have a better answer for you.
Wasn't hardware 1? Wasn't it the Mobileye? That whole Mobileye thing?
So they had, there was a couple of different things, but yes, hardware 1 was Mobileye, is the IQ3 unit for the core processor. So that's the processor itself. That processor had 256 megs of RAM. Hardware 2 had went up to 6 gigs. Hardware 3 has 8 gigs times 2, so it's 16. So RAM got better. Processing power. Hardware 2 is around 40 times more powerful than hardware 1. Hardware 3 is 420 times more powerful, than hardware 1. So there's a lot of there's a lot of just improvements that had. But yeah, the Mobileye chip eventually went to NVIDIA, so they were using NVIDIA system on chips and GPUs. Now it's actually Tesla chips. So Tesla designed their own microprocessors that are actually on there. It's based on ARM cores. And it's part of their neural networking. A company I used to work for, we met with Tesla and SpaceX. I can't talk about specifics, but we developed tools that were used to manufacture chips, to manufacture processors, and we actually did meet with the teams there and go over some of their requirements for producing those chips. So they've been in production for a while. There's actually newer chips. So we talked about up through hardware 3. I'm assuming it's going to be called 4. It's the next one. That's slated to. They haven't said when it comes out. They've been manufacturing the chips. Those production lines have been running since mid to end of last year in semiconductor plants. So I think they first started getting those chips around November, December timeframe. We're expecting they'll probably hit the markets late second half of this year, towards the end of this year, maybe with delays and other things that might go into next year. My expectation is those will be retrofittable, and anyone that has a Tesla now with hardware 3, you should be able to retrofit. But who knows? I mean,
so I'm curious.
Tesla, they might decide to pull,
I'm curious, Lewis.
a fast one, but I doubt it.
I'm going to ask for an opinion on this. The easiest way to make an upgradable computer, especially when you don't know the future, is wrap it around ASIC technology. Do you have any insight whether they're using that type of technology that you can talk about?
So, I mean, basically, Tesla's working on a number of different technologies around, machine learning type chips and processing chips for cars. There's all kinds of requirements. So doing automotive chips, there's all kinds of regulatory bodies and other things. When you're talking about something like ASIC, really you start getting into chip design and instruction sets, which I don't necessarily want to get too into. I'm happy to, because we can get pretty technical. But the important thing here is really less about the chip architecture, because you're not swapping a chip, right? So if you're worried about the chip architecture, now you're getting into what do the boards look like? Are you swapping chips? Are you resoldering components?
So.
They're not doing that. Really what matters is the harnesses and the interfaces of communication. What buses do we have? What IO ports do we have? Those types of things. That's where you get into the retrofits. That's where you get into, can I upgrade? Can I swap things out? So, Tesla has their own chip design. They actually have chips that they've designed for training models. That's their big, racks that they're doing, where they're doing billions of computations. They're doing all their image processing. That's related to, but not the same as the chip that's going into the computer into the car. Because the car just needs to take in some data.
The car's not trying to learn. Well, the car's not
normalize that
as
data,
drive it.
bounce it against the model. Correct. Right. The cars are not learning. The cars are taking data and streaming it back to Tesla. Tesla has data centers that are learning, or doing the training, and engineers that are doing all that
cars
research
are really
and
smart,
development.
but not that smart.
And then the cars are smart, but the cars aren't doing the learning. When it comes to machine learning, you tend to have massive compute farms that do the learning, and then they kind of distill it down to these very simple formulas and numbers. It's just tables of numbers when you're talking about a neural net. And what they do is they then download that into the software on your car, and then your car reads the signals, the video coming in, and it just kind of almost does, it's kind of like feeds it through, streams it almost like a lookup table of going like, oh, these numbers, it does this, this, and this, and then it goes, oh, that's a car. I gotta, do this or that. So the computer in the car is much simpler than their advanced chip design stuff they're doing. But it is new. They are new Tesla chips. They are designed. They are based on the same architecture, I believe. I might have to dig in a little bit more to that to see what they're doing now. But anyway, yeah.
So in saying that, Lewis, which is an excellent, I mean, my geek spidey sense went up when you started talking about those things. It's really cool. So having said all of that, did you order FSD for your Plaid?
I'm sorry, say again?
Did you order FSD for your Plaid?
That's a great question. So,
and Mike, I'm going to ask you the same question also.
Short answer, long answer. Short answer is yes. Long answer is I don't think it's financially worth it. However, until you take delivery, you can actually turn it off. So until I take delivery, I could say no, I don't want it anymore. But so far, I have done it. Realistically, I think it makes sense to purchase the subscription, depending on how long you plan on using the car. When you look at the pricing, unless they raise the price, so that they might raise the price again. But it was like, I think it's $300 a month, something like that. Okay.
It's 200. It's
200 bucks. Is it $299 or $199?
Last time I looked.
Okay. So it's $200 a month. Okay. So if you're looking at that, you've got, right now, FSD is $12,000, right? So if you divide that by 200, that's 60 months if it's 200. So 60 months of subscription.
$199.
Sorry, say again.
That's a bargain.
$199. Okay, yeah. So it's 60 months of subscription versus paying $12,000 up front. So one thing, subscription will move with you, right? You cancel your subscription, you can bring it with you in another car. So if you plan on keeping your car, so more than 5 years, and you would plan on having the subscription the whole time, then yeah, maybe you want to do that. And it could help your resale over time. The price will go up. Maybe the value will be there. You also don't know if the subscription price will go up. They might increase that $199 to a higher price point, right, as the functionality gets better. So I mean, everyone's got to do this own calculation for themselves to figure it out. For me, and what I'll point out is if you don't drive far distances, you're not driving where you think you might use it all the time. Like do a 1 month, see if you like it. If you like it, maybe then buy the full thing if you want, or keep it for a while, turn it off. If you're not going to use the car all the time, you could save money some months. Personally, I have a habit of forgetting about subscriptions and paying for them years after I don't need them anymore. I don't know how many people do that, but I really am awful. I think I'm going to do it just because I don't want to be bothered of figuring it out and all the other stuff. And I plan on keeping the car. Like I keep my cars on average probably 10 years. So I plan on keeping the car. Also, I'm a huge tech geek, so I'm going to want to see the latest changes that come out. I'm going to mess with it. I'm going to be a beta tester.
I'm on the other side of the fence.
If I can, hopefully. But anyway.
I'm actually going to subscribe. And the reason I'm doing that is because I'm pretty sure I'm not going to keep this Model 3 more than a year, maybe 2 at the most, because I'm going to want something newer. I can almost guarantee it. And, my track record with cars has not been good for longevity. I kind of cycle through them. So the subscription makes sense for me.
Yeah, I mean, I think the subscription probably makes sense 99% of the time. Like I would be willing to bet most consumers at $12,000 for the one shot, you should probably do a subscription. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah,
so Mark, you had full self-driving package before in your 3, right?
Yeah, so my 2023 that I just sold, it got the 2022 version. I bought it then before the subscription was a thing, and I used it pretty much on the road. It was really cool, but it did improve over the time. So when I got my 2022 just now, February, the $12,000 was something, but I'd rather just pay it and not get into the subscription model. I just rather pay it.
Sure.
Because before that, I was fortunate enough to get into the FSD Beta back in November when I had my older car. And driving around in LA, you try to maintain a 100. That's nearly impossible to do that. But so what I did was I waited until I think it was Friday, like Fridays or the weekend. They would release they would bring new people into the beta on the weekends. So I kind of waited until like that Wednesday. I knew I had a trip out to San Bernardino. That's about a 90-mile one way. So I said, you know what, I can get my 100 miles in this one day driving there and back. So I can do that, pace myself, not to fall too. So I did all of that, and then that Friday or Saturday I got the email, and the Friday I got the email, and Saturday I got the download. So that's how I snuck my way in. Now that said, when I did use the FSD Beta in LA, because I primarily work in Hollywood, because that's where the studio is where I work at. So there's always people there. There's tourists around. Yep. They'll stand out in the middle of the street. They'll take the Hollywood sign. They don't care about cars. They're just like, nothing wrong. That's cool. But it was a good testing ground to see how FSD would work for that. And the persistence that increased where you would see people, they would get behind something. It would block the camera. And then instead of the camera just not seeing that person anymore, the camera would predict where they would be walking.
Nice.
Persistence. So that got better. And so then the car was smart enough to slow down for people. I saw the car slow down, put its blinker on, and get into the other lane of a 2-lane road, and then get back into the lane. So it was really fun to see it, but it's also squeamish. Like if it wants to turn left, it kind of
like stutter a little bit. Yeah,
wheels like the wheels like that. And it's like, should I go? So you give it gas, like, just go, it's okay. So you give it some gas or the go pedal, and it says, oh, okay, thank you. Then it kind of just moves on. So it was fun. I enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I don't have it on my new one because it doesn't transfer over. And sure. I don't have this bandwidth to try to drive slow in a performance Model 3. I just can't do it. So, but it was really fun. And I think being able to experience that for the couple of months I did, once they finally feel comfortable to get it out there, whenever that is, it's going to be fantastic, man, because just driving it through the things the car can do, what it can see, it sees dogs, it sees all types of things, bicyclists, it knows it'll go around them. It's really cool tech, And Lewis, when you're talking about the upgrades earlier, I was thinking about like all of this stuff that you do in the neural net and how it actually goes back into making the car better to drive. It's just fantastic, man. So, I miss it.
So let
me
ask you two guys this question, since you're both veterans of FSD. I've actually thought about getting the subscription for my upcoming road trip. I plan to do about 1,500 mile-ish road trip for yes or no? Maybe? Yes?
Yes. I had a friend, he just bought a Model Y, he and his wife.
Okay.
He's from Chicago, she's from Virginia. So he bought his Model Y last year when used car rates were crazy. And then he opted in to subscribe to it just for that trip. So on an as-needed basis, when they travel back to Chicago and Virginia where their families
are. Yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Exactly.
I think that's a good idea. I would at least at least once, right? Because you don't know if you're going to like the features. And it's always improving too. The other thing is, Mark mentioned some issues with it. And if you go on TMC, there's many posts and blog posts and discussions around this. It works great in some areas. It doesn't work so great in others. Elon just tweeted recently, I don't know, the last few days, I think, even about how the new version is supposed to come out. They were going to release a new version, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago, and it got pushed to this weekend, and now they're not sure when. But they're saying they feel like they're getting close in city driving. They're going to go back to focusing on highway driving because there's been
and
some challenges there with phantom
I'm real glad
braking
you brought that
and
up
some other
because
things. So
when I first got the Tesla, I had several instances of phantom braking that just scared the hell out of me. Driving around LA on the freeways, having your car decide to slam on the brakes is not a good thing. But I'll say in the last 6 months, it's gotten a lot better. I can only think of once in the last 6 months it's tried to do that.
Sure.
So
I was just going to say, I think there's been a number of posts in the beta even that it's improved. It just kind of depends on where you are. And part of the challenge is you've got, that's what makes self-driving hard, right? If you do self-driving similar to like how Waymo is doing it, or one of those, we have a limited area. This is the only area and we're doing it there. It's a much easier problem space to solve.
Bunch of random humans, random places.
You can drive anywhere in the U.S. with it. Random humans on random places, right?
I'm sorry, let's go ahead.
It's your turn now, Mark. Yeah.
No, I'm done. You go.
So
it's your turn. You're up.
On the phantom braking, when I had my March 2020 Model 3 Performance, I experienced it once. And I was going down the 101, and the 101 is an interstate in LA. It's right by Universal City. And so there's a bridge, I think it's Barham, it's Barham. There's a bridge, and there's a light up top. There's a traffic light up there.
See that?
So the car saw it. I was this when I first got the Tesla, and the car saw that, and it was like 4:00 in the morning because I had to come in, had an early call. So I was just letting the car drive itself. I was getting used to it, and it saw that light, and I saw it on the screen, and it slowed. That's like, but then it just picked right back up right after it saw that. So that was my first introduction to phantom braking, and I think I experienced it just one more time on the interstate. But I will say, when I got FSD Beta, I never experienced the phantom braking. I know it went to vision only because my car did have radar on it, the 2020 model, so it went to vision only. But I never did experience any phantom braking in the city, so I use it primarily in Hollywood because it's so the streets there are really just kind of weird, and people, there's a lot of people there. So that's where I use FSD the most because I'm mostly on the interstate, so I'm rarely in city driving, so I use it there a lot. So I never experienced phantom braking, but what I did thought was interesting was that because the cameras are vision, I was at a stoplight. There was there was windows and they had reflective tint on it. So the cars that were parked next to it, the cameras saw that reflection. So it would build the car and then the car in the wall too. I thought that was kind of cool that it visually thought it had two cars there. The whole cars were reflected into the mirror. But phantom braking was never really a big deal for me. But I know, and not discounting it, I know it was for a lot of people, but in my use case, it really wasn't that much of an issue.
It can be scary. I mean, so I haven't yet experienced it in Tesla, but I'll see how that goes once I get my new Model S.
Well,
but I have experienced it in a Jeep. So my wife has a Jeep, and it has the safety driving assist thing in it. So it doesn't do lane or any of that other kind of stuff, but it does have the auto emergency braking, and it is radar based. And here in Austin, where before we moved into our house now, we lived in a different location in Austin, and at that place there was a road that we used to take every day. It's actually right near the semiconductor fab where AMD used to be in Austin before they moved their manufacturing to New York. But anyway, so there was this overpass on that road, and the car, like, several times would freak out and slam on the brakes. And the first time it happened, we almost had an accident because there was a car behind us and I didn't know what was going on. And that was a phantom brake on a not Tesla, just different manufacturer car. And that same road, it would trigger it all the time. So because we knew about it, we would drive differently to be ready for, that it was coming. But yeah, it can be definitely scary.
Yeah, our Pacifica's got the same brains that your Jeep has.
Okay.
It's all Chrysler, and it's done the same thing.
So yeah, I mean,
non-Tesla slamming on the brakes.
It's not a Tesla issue. It's a automation issue for all cars. And again, that was a radar only car. There's been a lot of debate on TMC and Twitter and other things about how vision only is awful. You need radar, you know, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it can happen no matter what the technology is. It's just there will be different failure rates and there will be different percentages, you know, related to it. So it is what it is. But I'm glad to hear all the reports that it's decreasing. It's getting better with Tesla. Hopefully, you know, it'll never be zero, but hopefully it becomes, you know, once in a year or once in owning a car instead of an
Mike,
everyday thing for some folks.
To fall back on, we're talking about the FSD Beta, and we can talk about this forever because it's really a hot topic on TMC. But in regards to your trip you're going to take now, as you guys know, the CCS1 adapter that everyone's been raving about and wanting to do, because it was CHAdeMO. We all know that the spigot CHAdeMO, which I bought that when I first got my car. I thought it was cool. I never used it, and I ended up selling it. But there's now the CCS1 charger that allows, once it comes, will allow us to connect to more locations. And so, Mike, this might be a good thing for you to maybe talk about. I'm sure you'll probably get it because it seems you'll be doing a lot more traveling. Yeah.
I am actually. As soon as it's available, I'll be first in line. So CCS or what is called combined charging system has been around for quite a while. They've got version 1, version 2, and the short version of what it is, it's a way to provide DC fast charging. And that's a little different what Tesla does natively with AC fast charging. You've got alternating current, which is what Tesla does. You've got direct current, which is what everybody else is doing with their DC fast charging. And you might say, well, you know, I got superchargers, you know, I can just go to supercharger. I don't have to worry about converters or adapters or, you know, whatever. And to a large degree, you're right. But my road trip, for example, I'm going into Arizona. I'm going to go in through Tucson, down to Tombstone, up to Sedona and around. And while there are superchargers along the way, most of the way, there's a couple places that are a little scarce. But there is CCS available if you have some way to use it, which I do not right now. And that's kind of the beauty of the system is you with the adapter, you cannot worry so much about can I charge or where am I going to find a charger. Just about everybody, Electrify America, you know, EV Charge, you know, all those folks are running, you know, a version of CCS. And so it kind of opens the window up for the Tesla owner to be able to just go with the understanding I can plug in. I may have to use my little adapter, but that's okay. I mean, I'm used to it. I started with my Tesla with a J adapter because my wife's van has got the J plug adapter, and that's what we had. Now I've got 2 chargers at the house, so I've got my normal Tesla charger. But J works fine. It's just kind of slow. The beauty of the CCS, and this is actually a little secret. So your Tesla superchargers are not all fast.
What?
Some are 70 something kilowatts. You've got some that are 150 kilowatts. Some are, you know, 300 kilowatts, version 3. CCS usually is 100 plus. So if I'm looking at a fast supercharger at 70 kilowatts or a CCS next door at 100 kilowatts, I might go for that if I don't want to stick around for a while. So there's some extra benefits available to the folks that use this. Europe's been using it for quite a while. It is their standard, if I'm not mistaken. Now, for us in the U.S., Korea's first. They have it officially. There's actually a part number in the Tesla catalog for the kit to upgrade and bring it to the Model 3, for example. That's what I'm interested in. The Model S has been able to do it for quite a while. And I don't know about the X. I don't know if the X was, maybe you guys do. I don't know. I haven't followed the X very closely.
You mean if they're able to do CCS?
Yeah.
So they just updated the new refresh of the Plaid and the S and the X is all around the new door opening, so that they have the same. So
yeah. So they're moving forward.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be happening.
Like. Yeah, because like my Model 3, it says, you know, I can do it, but it doesn't have the hardware. And that's what this kit in the catalog's all about. Is it's the upgrade I need for my Model 3 to be able to talk, CCS. Sure. I mean, if I were to buy the adapter today and plug it in, nothing would happen. Wouldn't work. The Model 3 just doesn't have the intelligence to use it. But we're hoping for the best. Like I said, Korea's got it. Fingers crossed, sometime this year we'll get it. Historically, that seems to be what happened. Tesla will roll it out to Korea, and then it kind of trickles into the U.S. within a few months. And with you've got Giga Berlin now going live. You've got Shanghai. I mean, you got the world market pushing it. I can see it going even faster.
And speaking of the world market, there's been lots of, we all know about Ukraine, and we all know about that whole Russia-Ukraine thing. And there's been, in the Tesla community, there's been lots of people that are saying, well, of course, Elon should just brick these cars over there, and Elon should just, not make things work over there in Russia. Yeah. I get the sentiment behind that because, what Russia's doing to Ukraine, I understand people's passion about that. But, does that help? But there's not all Russians are on board with that, I would go on a ledge to say. And so some of these people need to have their car to get from A to B. So although the sentiment is understood, I think it may be a little bit heavy-handed about that. What you guys think about that?
Well, as a geek, and I'll just leave it at that. As a geek, weaponizing my car or any other smart device I have bothers me a lot.
Right.
Because what you do one day to someone else can be done to you the next day just as easily, and that's a really slippery slope to go down. And it opens up the discussion. Well, who's got the back door in your system? Why is a manufacturer allowed to do that? Well, you have over-the-air updates. That's the whole point of it, to be able to update your car. And weaponizing that just strikes me as kind of a bad idea.
It's definitely, it would set, a dangerous, precedent if they did that. And I think Elon was smart in saying, no, we're not going to do that. But I mean, again, it's like, who are you trying to punish? Are you trying to punish, Russian citizens that have Teslas, or it's in not any geopolitical thing. There's always different sides, even in the countries behind doing stuff. It's not like it's a unanimous decision. And even if it was, it's a product. They bought the product. I don't necessarily agree with doing something about it, but
I mean, Elon has stepped up and he sent Starlink over.
It's true to Ukraine,
and they've taken the Powerwall, and they've actually adapted the Powerwall to be a power source with DC to DC converters and whatnot. And what's kind of cool about that, because I was reading up on it, because I'm thinking, because I like Powerwalls. I'm thinking about one for the house. But Elon and his employees got together, and the employees volunteered time. Some of the vendors got together and volunteered materials and boards and parts, and they managed to put together these care packages to turn the Powerwall into a device to run the Starlink units. And I'm thinking, okay, that's smart and clever, and the fact it's all volunteer and donations, that's even better. So mad props for that.
Yeah, but I agree, it's really cool they did that, but there was some interesting posts about how then Russia started jamming the satellite signals. So SpaceX is currently working on, Elon did a tweet about cybersecurity and focusing there, where basically they're trying to get Starlink signals to work through
what's next with Starlink, don't you? There'll be an update that does frequency agility.
Yeah, right, exactly.
For their transmission receiving.
Right. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting. See what happens, but I agree. I think it's cool that they, Starlink is an amazing technology that will enable a lot of internet to access the places that normally couldn't have it easily at speeds and latencies. I think the latency being probably the best part of it. So it's definitely an amazing technology, and there's an interesting adaptation. I think it's cool with Powerwall what they're doing, Mike. Like you said, I wish that Powerwall was maybe not so back ordered, so that more people could just actually get the real product for their house, let alone repurposing it. But that's I guess that's kind of a first world problem.
Well, so let me ask you this. Okay, both of you guys. Mark, you're an engineer, or Mark, you're a consumer, And Lewis, you're the engineer, so I'm gonna ask for two views on this. So one of the hot topics in my circle of friends is the repurposing of used battery packs. They're not good enough for a car because they can't sustain the drain, but there's really nothing wrong with the battery pack for long-term storage or even short-term storage. What would you think about a sponsored program to take used EV packs, Tesla packs, and repackage them into a Powerwall?
Wow, because Lewis, you will correct me, because I don't have Powerwalls.
Here it
but,
comes.
There's not that much of a draw on a Powerwall. Like I guess if you had like a big motor that you're powering, but typical household appliances during an outage, we need a Powerwall.
Pretty small.
It wouldn't.
Pretty small
The
draw.
constant drain wouldn't be that much. So to me, that sounds like a fantastic idea and good PR work, because people always say, like, well, we say Tesla is zero emissions. We're like zero emissions. People say, well, yeah, but look at the factories that they use to make the batteries and all
That's
that
right.
stuff. So
That's right.
How cool would it be for the Tesla company to say, let's get those batteries, let's put them in the Powerwall. So we're not necessarily just chucking them up into a landfill somewhere. We're actually putting them to good use. So I think that's a great idea, not just for PR, but just to keep the cycle moving and keep the ecosystem and keep the house the birds friendly and the ground free of all this stuff. So I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great idea from a consumer standpoint. No, and I think it would be an interesting technical challenge to see what they can do there. The problem with batteries, and this is not my area of expertise, would be around the chemistry behind them and how that's going to change over time. I guess the problem is, how do you quantify and rate the performance of the battery and what it can still do to give some kind of a time period or capability? Because you might have a pack that it works great for a few months and then it just fails outright, or you might have a pack that
okay,
lasts longer.
but it's typically not the pack that fails; it's a cell that fails.
Sure. I mean, absolutely, and that's true with most modern technologies of storage of even data and information, right? RAM,
Absolutely.
SSDs, all that kind of stuff.
It's usually a small subpiece.
And having the mechanism where you can control which ones you use and which ones you don't use, I think that could be interesting. The trick with, the problem with the draw is it depends on what you hook up to it, right? And even with a generator, even if you don't have a battery pack, it entirely depends how it's wired, what you hook up to it. I imagine some homes would draw a lot more than others, for sure. But yeah, I think it's a cool idea. Something to keep in mind with switching over, though, is definitely going to be, I guess the whole, it's going to require all the power updates and everything. So like the Powerwall itself is the easy part. It's more of like the inverters and the switches and the power panels and all of that stuff that is involved with getting.
Well, that's kind of the dirty little secret about the Ford F-150 Lightning with their house pack that they're talking about. And what Chevy's talking about is it's not the battery that's a big deal. It's all the other pieces you have to put in place and the upgrades you got to have in place to run it all.
Right.
Going to be some bucks.
Right. Exactly. And it's so, I think it's a cool idea, though. And I definitely, I think recycling batteries and repurposing them and all those types of things are great for renewability. And we definitely need to look at doing that. I think that there's new battery chemistries and new technologies being developed that hopefully make this become less of a problem. I think Mike, you even mentioned it in a previous podcast around how, Tesla's looking at different, metal arrangements on their packs.
They're actually playing with iron.
Like iron. So the funny thing is, some of those chemistries don't work in a car because weight is a factor and charging rates, the amount of discharge you need. Weight's not as much of a factor if it's a Powerwall for your house.
True.
So there are probably cheaper and better alternative packs that you could leverage for Powerwall instead of just using like the same thing that a Model 3 has. But if the battery packs are out there, I know of people that have recycled them. Like there's been projects and things posted online of people that, they get the battery packs and then they build their own Powerwalls and they build their own things. I don't recommend normal people do this, It's definitely an advanced hobbyist
Like
project
me?
and is dangerous. You
Right,
can hurt
right.
yourself.
Don't get on YouTube and take the YouTube electrical test and like, oh, I can do anything
That's
now.
right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But
I got a screwdriver and a pair of dikes. I'm good.
yeah, exactly. So I'm not sure that Tesla would ever officially support this because it almost doesn't seem worth it to them. But there may be third parties that do, that want to buy the used packs for a discounted rate and then repurpose them. I could see that happening.
Well, what got us talking about, my circle and I, what got us talking is we were looking at the raw numbers of how many EVs are going to be sold in the next year.
Mhm.
And I mean, it's a lot.
Sure.
It's a lot of battery packs that are going to be floating around.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, let's assume no battery, in California, I think you get 10 years is what they guarantee the pack for. Not Tesla, but the state says it has to be guaranteed. But okay, what happens at the end of 10 years? You just kind of pick it up and chuck it in the dustbin? I don't see that happening.
There's going to be something. There's something I wanted to fall back on. You guys were talking about the Starlink, and a friend of mine that I do music with, he lives in Georgia, and he's a retired military guy. He and his dogs. He has this nice chunk of land out, but it's surrounded by trees. But anyway, he got on the beta to get the Starlink, and he just received it last week, and so he's having to chop all these trees down. And
the line of sight.
Yeah. And he had, like, I think it was AT&T. It was like anemic. I mean, it was crazy. Like his TV, he couldn't use his phone and TV at the same time to stream because it was that wet. But he sent me a screenshot of what he get from Starlink. It was like 1.9 megabits per second or something like that. It was way more than what he. I mean, it was a million times more than what he had, but it was failing because of the trees. But just to fall back on the Starlink, it's really cool. And his pings were like almost nothing. Like his ping was like 33 million. It was like literally nothing. And I'm sure you guys, and Mike, you may know this too because you were in Sailor. Maybe you would, but back in the day when they had the old satellite internet. It was way different, and the pings were way worse. 600
milliseconds was normal.
Right. And so now...
I think the original system was like 3 seconds. It was 1.5 up and then 1.5 down because it was geostationary really satellites. But yeah. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But Elon's satellites are a lot lower.
Yeah.
I mean, so the closer you get to Earth, the less the latency is going to be.
Yeah,
of course, there's more drag. They're not going to stay up there as long. So take your pick.
Yeah, I think I said megabits per second. I think I misspoke the M's and the G's, but it's fast. Maybe it's gigabits, whatever. I forgot the screenshot that he sent me, but it was hella fast. Is what it was. I mean, megabits. I could be off with that. But the point I was trying to say is that the fact that the ping is so low and from a satellite, I just thought that's just fantastic. It just shows what they're doing with this kind of technology. You know, I think that it's from where it used to be to what it is now. I think it's great. I mean, some people might want to use it, just in a regular city if you get the kind of speeds he was getting.
Well, yeah. So I mean, so a friend of mine actually had the beta last year. He was using it. He lives in East Texas in the middle of the woods. He has a bunch of land. Had to cut down all the trees. So one of the challenges of Starlink is actually the angle requirements of where the constellation is in space. So
pretty low. I
think
imagine.
It's like 25 degrees.
Yeah, that's
which
really
is
low.
Very low. So like originally they were planning it to be 40 degrees, which is already a challenge. But like 40 degrees, you can kind of say like, okay, it's not that bad. 25 degrees, that's a low angle. So you really need a clear path to the sky, towards. So I mean,
radar.
It's going to be tricky.
Radar,
but,
we used to call that ground clutter.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So like, it's not really practical in any place that's going to have buildings and other types of, like all that kind of infrastructure. But like, if you are out in a rural area, if you are out, like it's amazing. The latencies are fantastic, and even the bandwidth. I think they've gotten up to. They just published something. It was somewhere around like 300 or 500 megabits a second, which is fast, for most people's
that's
internet.
Impressive.
I mean, I have 5 gig fiber, but I'm an oddball because I live in Austin. But I mean, 300 to 500 meg is insanely fast. And again, I think the latency is the key. The challenge is, how is that going to maintain under load? Because they have
Right.
this really complex setup
it's a shared
of
resource.
satellites beaming signals across, and it's a really brilliant technology. But the question is, will the latencies hold? And if they do hold, they might get repurposed to where it might not be regular consumer internet that's getting priority. Because there's basically, I think, not to get too nerdy on this, but I think the problem with standard latencies and internet speeds, right, has to do with just physics, right, and optics and the distance, right. We have large geographical distances. You have to run these cables. So with this, you don't have to run cables. Obviously, it's just through the air. But I think where people were really interested in it was low latency across, like from like New York to like London or something, right? And if you can route it correctly, it looks like it may be able to beat some of the latencies of certain underground transatlantic cables, which will cause the financial markets to much prefer that instead of fiber optic.
Only on clear days.
Exactly. On certain situations.
Weather is terrible.
Right.
It destroys your signal.
But yeah, so anyway, but I think it's a great technology. Hopefully your friend likes it. My friend loved it, and they took it away from him. They did beta for some period of time, and they said, okay, now the constellation's not going to be over where you're at. So they took the stuff back, and he's waiting for when it comes out for real. But
it was So now I'm looking at it. It's 193 megabits per second.
That's really cool.
So that's impressive.
That's really good for.
That's good cable.
When your alternative is cellular, which
yeah,
we'll
have often, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Come on! Don't you believe the marketing pitch for 5G?
Hey, look, 5G is pretty cool, man. I'm gonna say it's pretty cool, but that's just me. I mean, I can tell. No, I can't. I ain't even lie. It's cool. It's cool. 5G is cool. Now look here, Lewis. I know. Look, we can talk about this. We can geek out on this stuff forever. This is just
anytime
cool
you want
stuff.
to, just ping me,
bro. Hey, okay.
Just ping you. All right.
Look, I'm in LA, so be careful because it might be 1:00 in your time, and it's like 11 here. I might say, "Hey, Lewis, you up?" You're like, "Bro."
Yeah.
I didn't really mean that. You know what I'm saying? But look here, though. But look here though, Lewis. Rumors. There's a rumor there. Well, not a rumor. It's kind of legit that the Gigafest in Austin is going to be happening.
Yeah, your
neck of the woods.
Yes.
So Mike and I, can we come enjoy your 5 gig of service and hang out and go check this out?
You're welcome to it. You're welcome to it. The funny thing is, so I'm really interested. Yeah. So Gigafest, Austin at the factory here. So I guess Tesla's done these types of festivals at other locations. Yeah. They're going to be having it here next month. I think it's currently slated for April 7th, if the approvals go through. I'm looking forward to possibly attending. I don't know if anyone at Tesla can get me in there. I live in Austin. I'm an Austinite. I have a Tesla Model S Plaid on order, so hey, come on, hook me up.
Exactly.
But yeah, so it'll be interesting. I might get to go. We'll see. I'm going to try to figure that out. It should be fun meeting a lot of Tesla folks and enthusiasts like myself.
Do you know any friends or close associates who have Tesla or thinking about getting a Tesla and heard about it?
Oh yeah, it's been in the local media here, and it's been brought up. That's how I know about it. Even not just being a Tesla geek. So some folks I know that have Teslas are interested in going, and some folks I know that don't have Teslas are interested in going. But yeah, so it'll be we'll see what happens. So I think they're getting like regulatory approval right now because it's a mass gathering. They're expecting over 10,000 people and all the permits and other things. So we'll see what happens when that happens. But yeah, it would be cool to attend that and experience it. And hey, maybe I'll have my car by then. We'll see.
I know.
That would be really cool.
Do test drives around Austin, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Maybe you see the Cybertruck down there too, and you can tell us more about the Cybertruck.
You know what? I've got extra bedrooms. You two are welcome to come on over, crash at my pad.
But I was just thinking, you'll have your Plaid, you'll have your CCS charging set up. You'll be all set.
I'm not going to have a CCS charger.
But how has Austin been receptive to Tesla coming there? I mean, has the energy been good overall from people you've talked to?
I think so. I mean, so to be fully, I mean, Tesla's out. You know, whenever companies like this, it's probably different from. Maybe it's different in LA. I don't know, but like whenever big companies come to cities like this, it's like, yeah, they're in Austin. It's like, well, they're kind of in Austin. They're really like next to Austin, but you know, they're on the east side. Like I think they're a little southeast or something. So it's not having a big impact in traffic or other types of things. I think for most people, at least I'm not aware of it. But yeah, I mean, Austin's a tech, you know, center. I like to joke. It's the, you know, it literally is the Silicon Valley of Texas, where it, you know, all the Silicon Valley companies, you know, AMD and Intel and all, they're all here. Samsung, they're all the Motorola, they're all here. So I mean, I think mostly there's a lot of tech people here, so they all love it. And I think, you know, even maybe some non-tech people, they think it's, you know, it's good for Austin. It's good for Texas. You know, it's, brings a lot of jobs and also a lot of cool, technology. But, yeah, I mean, as far as I know, people like it. But I run in those circles. So maybe there's circles where people are not happy with them.
A little biased. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so for our some of our listeners and viewers who doesn't know what that is, do you know more about it, Lewis, and what they would go on?
So they haven't released much information yet. But what I believe they've said is stuff around like there'll probably be like tours of the factory. It's going to be like one of the biggest barbecue events. So they'll probably have like barbecue or other types of food there. So it'll be like a huge like food Texas, festival type thing. It is Texas, right?
How can you not have barbecue?
There'll definitely be brisket if they have barbecue. So it'll probably be just like a big festival. If I had to guess, there might be live music or something like that going on. I don't know. There'll be food. There'll be factory tours. But yeah, they actually have not officially posted any of the details, which is kind of crazy because it's getting closer and closer. Originally, it was supposed to be April 1st, and then they changed to April 7th, and the whole running joke was Elon assumed everyone would think he was doing an April Fool's prank, so that's why he pushed it out. You know, but I don't know that for sure. But I think I read that they actually did it because there's a regulatory requirement where you have to submit the forms 45 days before an event, and they would have missed the 45 days if it was on the 1st, but on the 7th they're within the window or something like that. But hopefully we find out in the next week or two. So maybe we'll have more details in the next podcast. About what's going on. But.
Exactly. I know. I know. So we can talk about these things, a lot more stuff. I mean, you guys are just so cool to talk to. I'm very fortunate to be able to talk to you guys because you both bring lots of dynamics and a lot of different interesting topics to the scene. I mean, Mike, the whole lighthouse thing, bro, that's just like
that is a crazy. Man, like, that's an amazing.
You can't top that.
I don't have anything to that.
You can't top that, man.
No. I don't have anything
it's
that
unique.
It's
a unique talking point. I'll admit to that. I'm forever grateful to my dad for that one.
You can't talk that, man. But anyway, guys, you know, we got to wrap it up. I mean, you know, we got to, you know, all good things come to an end, you know, but we'll be back next week. You know, I want to thank everyone out there for watching this podcast. This is number 3, but we're going to have many more coming. We thank you for joining the Tesla Motors Club. If you have any questions, if you have comments, if you have things you want to talk about, if maybe you might want to be a guest, you think you're ready to go toe to toe with Mike and Lewis, you know, then there's a section on the Tesla Motors Club forum in the podcast section. You can leave comments there. You can also go to YouTube and leave a comment. You can also go to Twitter, you know, wherever your social media takes you. We want to hear more from you guys because this, you know, even though it's myself, Mike, and Lewis doing this, we get a lot of information from you guys, and we want to know what you guys are thinking because it's ultimately you guys who we're talking to. So if you have any questions or comments about anything, please leave us some comments below if you watch us on YouTube, or tweet it, go to Facebook. If you want to be a supporting member of the Tesla Motors Club forum, then go to the TMC website and do that. You can also follow the Tesla Motors Club, you know, on YouTube and also your other social media formats. But for now, we'll wrap it up. Again, these guys are fantastic. I mean, I love talking to them. So myself, I'm Mark. This is Mike and Lewis. We wish you guys a wonderful day. We'll see you guys next week.
Cheers.
Thank you.